Welcome back to the CMask podcast, all about reclaiming masculinity for Christianity. Mike, how you doing?
Doing very well. It's good to be back here with you, Will.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, Tim and the Gordons are all kind of under the weather, so Tim will be joining us again next Friday. But it's been a long hiatus, and it was very cool actually how many people reached out to me and how many comments I've gotten. Like, dude, where's CMask? Where's CMask? So that's always very cool. But we're back, doing well. God is good.
that's right. Everyone's been busy, but we're excited to put out some more content and help people on their journey in virtue. So today's topic, we're looking at why the gym or physical culture belongs to Christianity. And this isn't something that first comes to mind, is it? Christianity and physical strength?
Yeah, I think in the modern world, I think it's kind of the opposite, right? That they equate Christianity to weakness, but we understand Catholicism as the fullness of the truth, and no other faith honors the total person, much like Catholicism does. And I know we're going to get into that article by Pius XII, but it's worth really thinking about because I think a lot of even modern Catholics who are really well studied and pious men otherwise, this kind of this point doesn't hammer home for them as well because they look at it as everybody quotes Timothy and for physical training is only of some value, and they forget that St. Paul said that it is of some value, and that not to treat yourself, to quote Pius XII as well, like a Manichaean where you're just like a spirit trapped in a body, and you're an actual total person. So honoring the total person, this is actually a it's right and just and it's good, so long as, just like Pius XII said, that it doesn't become vanity, for vanity's sake, so to speak, a pursuit in and of itself, just for the natural means, because God will just send you straight to hell for that. So it's an important point worth exploring. There's way too many soft Catholics, man, and I think the message that we're trying to convey here, I think, is very important in this very soft culture. What are your thoughts on that, though? When you think Christianity and strength, did you initially equate the two?
No, to begin with, in my late teens, early 20s, I was all about Nietzsche, right? Christianity is weak, it's soft, and you have to go to the pagans to get the muscular Vikings and Greeks and all the rest of it. I love that stuff. But all truth belongs to Christ, who's truth with the capital T. And anything that's good, beautiful, true in physical culture is his. And look, this is the only religion that tells you that you're actually going to have a body in heaven, right? And that as a whole person, if Tim was here, he could tell us about hylomorphism. The body and the soul together make up a human being. You're not a soul trapped in a body that's just a pointless cage that you're waiting to break free from. Instead, the two together make up the human being. So, this is a way of actually honoring who we are. And one thing that was a real turning point for me is that C.S. Lewis said that before we can make the new generation good Christians, we have to make them good pagans first. That's such a good insight. Become a good pagan first. Really sow the seeds of just the natural virtues properly, and then you can add grace on top of that.
Well, grace builds on nature. That's probably the best way to kind of put that phrase in a way that like a lot of people actually understand. And I've got a direct relationship with that too, because I lived like a pagan for a long time. And then once I married that to the supernatural grace and going to regular confession, partaking in the sacraments on a regular basis, prioritizing staying in the state of grace above all, these things actually helped me be a much better Catholic, a much more disciplined and pious Catholic, because it's the same thing. I mean, if the only thing that you get from the gym, and this applies to so many areas, but especially with regards to faith and business, if the only thing you get from the gym is stronger muscles and a better physique, you're missing the forest for the trees. You can apply these same principles to building a business, which I have with several businesses. And then the most impactful application of this is within my faith. I mean, have you seen that yourself? How has that played out for you in terms of your spiritual practice?
Yeah, ultimately, it's a matter of reps, isn't it? The gym is a matter of reps. You go in, you do the work, you complete the allotted sets, reps, you stay consistent, and you stay focused on the basics, and then you are building habits. Virtue is the result of repeated actions, doing the right thing. So it's like you're training not just your body, but your mind as well. And yeah, you get all kinds of transferable skills about being able to stick with hard things, which is part of what fortitude is. And you also get into the habit of doing something when you're not in the mood to do it. And you can apply that to whatever your business activities might be, and also to difficult conversations you might have to have with your wife or with your kids, making sure that you're always covering the basics and showing up no matter how you feel. That's a great mindset. But I also think that there's something about really taking control of your own passions, making sure that you know it's rightly ordered. That in particular is something that, because your body is part of you in such an intimate way, that really involves the whole man.
100%. And just, I want to touch on that real quick, but somebody in the chat says that there's an echo when I'm talking. I'm not sure if you're catching that, if it's on my side or on your side. I just lowered the volume just so we can make sure that
Yeah,
I
let's
don't
see
think
if
it's
it
coming through on
goes.
your end.
I can't hear it. I've got echo cancellation on for you, and I can't hear a thing. But let's change the volume, see what happens.
Yeah, I just lowered the volume here. Yeah, how the devil gets to us is through our lower faculties, right? So if you're a Catholic and you struggle with the virtue of temperance with regards to food and you don't know how to regularly fast, I mean, these are the things that we can directly take from our regular fasting practice in the church. And one could say that, we're probably not as rigorous as we could be if we're just abiding by, what the USCCB, or here in Canada, the CCB, or whatever the similar body is in the UK. We're fasting just a couple times a year, and it's really not that difficult. But what has ultimately, losing over 100 pounds and staying lean year round has taught me is fasting is good. It's the mortification of the flesh that's allowed me to, I wouldn't say master, I don't want to get cocky, but really take control of those lower faculties, that tendency for towards sin. I guess the word is concupiscence. Apparently the echo is still present, so I don't know what the hell's going on here, but
No, me
I'll
neither.
try
I
to fix
can't
it on
hear
my
it.
end.
It might be some weird latency thing. We used to have this when Elliot was on the show, something to do with the UK and Florida connection, I think it was. But we'll see. It's weird that I can't hear it, but people can.
Yeah, I've got the volume lowered a lot here. Let me see.
Could be that. It might be
Okay,
picking up your
sorry.
own voice on your mic.
Yeah, it could be. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully it's not incredibly distracting. But
Yeah, that's
anyways,
all right.
to that, yeah, to that point, how can we practically urge men to start kind of moving in this direction, to embrace, physical culture, specifically building the virtues of fortitude and temperance? This is a big part of my coaching practice with the men that come in. It's like, hey, listen, like, we're not just trying to get you jacked and lean. What can we learn from this? But to the guy that's listening that does not know where to start because he's inundated with so much information online on how to start and how to lift or how to eat, where would you tell them to practically begin with this?
Most guys, first of all, need to just build a little bit more of a base of strength, in my opinion. Even if you're overweight, first step I would recommend is just getting into the gym 2, 3 times a week. Pretty much any basic lifting program you can find online that emphasizes something like between 5 to 12 reps and mostly compound lifts is going to be suitable. You'll grow from just about anything to begin with. And just get into the habit of learning the movements, showing up regularly, and then as you've done more of it, you can fine tune. So that's an important habit to have. And you'll already see changes in your body just from that. Next thing is try to eat mainly single ingredient foods. Don't stress too much about counting calories. I do think you should probably weigh yourself every day and track it just to see whether you're moving in the right direction. Obviously, if your weight's staying the same, but you're getting stronger and your waist is decreasing, you're losing fat, you're gaining muscle. Great, don't change anything. That's ideal. But most people just have their head in the sand, right? And they're completely disconnected from the reality of what trajectory they're on physically. So just paying attention, watching what's happening, tracking your weight, taking an average every 2 to 3 weeks, and just seeing where the trend is, that's useful feedback. And it's just a basic part of prudence, right? Just like you should check your bank account often and look at your expenses and see where you're heading. Do it with your body too. And then, in addition to just lifting and then trying to eat mainly single ingredient foods, something like 8 to 10,000 steps a day. Get a pedometer or an app on your phone that tracks the steps. Just increase that in easy ways, right? Don't take the car for the short trip to the shops. Take the stairs when you could take the elevator. Little things like that can just help you to titrate your physical activity up, and you'll barely notice it. And those will become habits before you know it. You could even make a rule for yourself, like I always take the stairs. I never take elevators. I never take um, the car to the store if it's going to be under a 10-minute walk, something like that.
I think that's all great advice. And there was a common thread throughout all that, and that is what gets measured gets managed, right?
Mm.
So if you're tracking your steps, also, I mean, because that's such an easy way to burn calories and maintain your physique and cardiovascular health. To those people that work from home like I do, I have a walking pad, and a lot of my calls or my emails, I'm getting on that thing, and I'm getting 12 to 14,000 steps a day, and that's been very effective for weight management. So don't overthink it. To the guys thinking like you don't actually have to do direct cardio, you don't. I don't do direct cardio. Could I? Sure, but I think it's just, I mean, if you look at all the studies with regards to just steps alone, you're getting a lot of your cardiovascular benefit from that. And also with training with a high degree of volume or a decent degree of volume in the gym, you're still getting some cardiovascular benefit from that too. And to get a little bit more specific, single ingredient foods, that's great. If we're, I think it's also ideal to take it a step up and start to actually track and understand your macros and what does a normal week of eating look like for you? Because most guys have absolutely no clue. So get a baseline intake and then you can adjust things from there. It doesn't matter how you weigh it, whether it's raw or it's cooked. Don't look into like the nitty gritty of all that. Focus on total calories, staying accountable to total calories, and then prioritizing protein. The studies have overwhelmingly suggested that anywhere from zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight is efficacious for muscle growth and fat loss and strength development. Upwards of the ceiling is around 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you're a 200-pound guy, get 200 grams or at least between 140 and 160 grams of protein per day, and it should mainly be coming from single ingredient foods. Now, if we're talking about the gym, don't overthink that either. The first couple of weeks, you're going to be insanely sore. Start with a basic upper lower full body split 3 days a week. If you want to go to 4 days a week, upper lower, upper lower. Machines are okay, but I think it's really, if we're talking about hypertrophy when you're intermediate and advanced, I would actually say that there is um, they're superior because of the stability factor. Don't overthink that. All men should know how to squat, bench, deadlift, pick, 3 to 4 core movements per workout, with a decent amount of volume. And the biggest thing, we're talking about tracking macros. We're also talking about tracking your steps. Track your training. Progressive overload is like at the center of progress, right? It's in the name itself. So either you're doing the same weight for more reps as last time, or more weight for the same amount of reps as last time. And so I've followed a very basic plan for almost 15 years that I've been training. And I'm always aiming to beat the logbook because that is a reliable means of understanding that you're producing enough, volume, intensity, mechanical tension on the, appropriate muscle groups, and I'm able to grow. That's it. Don't
Yeah.
overthink it. Get started.
Yeah.
That's it.
People miss that one. It seems crazy that anyone could miss that, but write this down. If you are lifting the same amount of weight for the same sets and the same reps in a year's time, you will be basically the same as you are right now, right? No way around it. Even if it's 10 years from now, you might have lost a bit of fat, sure, but you won't be stronger and you won't be more muscular. You need to have some kind of way of progressing. The weights could stay roughly the same, but you have a lot more sets and reps, then you'll be bigger, right? But that's still progress of some sort. Personally, I generally recommend trying to get stronger in the 5 to 12 rep range. Like my son has been focusing on this approach for a couple of years now since he got interested in the gym, a teenager now. And he just has 2 days. One where he tries to take the weight from 4 reps to 6 reps, another day where it's going from 6 to 8. And sometimes he doesn't improve, but the next week he will. And he knows once he gets those sixes easily, add some weight back down to 4. And the same for the 6 to 8 day. I like that approach for guys who are just starting and like quite gung ho with how they like to always add weight to the bar. Sometimes it's good just to temper that a bit and focus on same weight, another rep, or move it a bit faster and just hold off and then add weight later. Otherwise, the mentality is more weight, more weight, more weight, and you could hit a wall. And it's generally easier not to get stuck in the first place than it is to get stuck and try and come unstuck.
Yeah, and also going through all of the rep ranges in a given cycle is also very important. And to anybody that's wondering how to track or log workouts, I'm very blue collar. I've logged all my workouts in my notepad on my phone. You could literally take a physical notebook that worked for Dorian Yates, that worked for Mike Menser, that worked for Arthur Jones, that worked for all these historic lifters that we've all looked up to. You don't got to get fancy with all these apps because I just think it's a lot of noise. Log it in your phone, your notepad, take notes of your bigger lifts. I can look back years ago and look at how much I've progressed, objectively looking at the numbers. And so if I were to take somebody through a sample 12-week training block, the first 2 weeks focus on sets of 10 to 12. The second block of 2 weeks focus on eight sets of 8 to 12. And then now we're getting into that second mesocycle, that second chunk of 4 weeks. For those 2 weeks, 6 to 8. The latter 2 weeks, 5 to 6. And you could taper down to a 1 rep max or get as low as, again, studies have suggested that sets as low as 3 to 4 reps produce a significant hypertrophy response. If you're like me or like you will, that we like to test our 1 rep max a couple times a year, you could taper down to a 1 rep max. And then now that you have 12 weeks of data, this is why it's so important to track, especially right from the hop. You can now go back to that training log. Okay, I squatted 135 for 12. This cycle, I'm going to squat 140 for 12 or 145 for 12. And that is tangibly how you produce results over the long term that are consistent, that are predictable. Because just going into the gym and like getting a pump or getting a burn is not going to cut it. It feels good, but it's not going to do anything for you mentally, physically, and spiritually too. You've got to, and then past a certain point, man, you are reaching for numbers, right? And as you progress more and more, understanding your proximity to failure, meaning like you couldn't do another rep with good form, things would start to break down. That starts to become more important for the guys at the beginning. Just start tracking it, prioritize protein, move a little bit more, and then the momentum will build on itself.
Yeah. And eventually you'll just fall in love with the process of it. And that's where the character formation really comes in, because everybody's going to have a workout that's going to be their best ever, and it's downhill from there, right? And eventually the bar is going to be too heavy for everyone. So you will peak, but then you'll carry on training because you're committed to it and you're staying detached from what the actual outcome is. You're just going in there and giving your best, because virtue is basically that repeated action. You built that skill and it's valuable in itself. Mike, what's your best deadlift now? Low eights?
Yeah, so my best conventional deadlift is 805. My best sumo deadlift done with a hook grip is 810.
Right. So,
It's lifetime drug free as well, to
yeah,
anybody that's wondering.
huge. Just shows you what's possible. Now, do you think you will ever pull 900?
No. And I'm totally cool with that. I may never pull 810 or 815, but I'm totally cool with that. I had a conversation with myself before I turned 30. I was like, I'm going to hop on the gas when I turned 30 years old. And then praise be to God, my faith transformed in my 30s. And I realized I was actually kind of GAY to just do that for the sake of just putting numbers on a bar when I've done more with my physique and my level of strength than 99.999% of people, and taking it to that next level would just inflame my vanity even further, which I have to keep under control. Because if it's uncontrolled, it still can creep up. So probably won't ever pull, 900 pounds, and I'm totally cool with that. Like, praise be to God. Like, and
Yeah.
this is another thing too. Being able to experience adaptations like that, you don't have to deadlift 800 pounds or 700 pounds like you. Um, to experience the marvel of God's creation, like he's wired this in our DNA. These adaptations, where like you look at my physique, you would never think I could deadlift 805 pounds. Like and of course, there's like a physiological, biological, like explanation for how these adaptations happen, but I am in awe of God's creation every time I get into the gym. I'm like, I can't believe these loads haven't snapped me in half. Have you experienced the same thing, Will? I know you've hit some big numbers yourself.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's interesting that you're at peace with the idea that, maybe you won't even pull like 8 or 6, right? Maybe the 805, that's it. And it's okay to be at peace with that. I'm thinking probably my favorite lift, I did 440 on the bench, paused on pins, right? And I was thinking, I didn't think I could do that. When I first started training, I was like, oh, everyone said that this is the reasonable limit for average genetics and you probably won't go beyond it. I thought, well, let's see. I'll just keep turning up, see what happens. And you can go a long way just through that persistence. And it's exciting to see where it can get you. And when you look back at a weight that used to make you really terrified and think that looks impossible, and you see you can do it, it's something that changes how you see yourself and changes your perception of difficulty. And there's a line that Pius XII had when he says that The body has its part to play in the homage to be rendered to the Creator. The body has its part to play in the homage to be rendered to the Creator. And the body is an amazing thing. It's not as amazing as our intellect, as our free will, which are the image of God in us, but it's still amazing. And it's great to be able to use that gift and glorify God with it, and also pushing ourselves physically and mentally in the process.
100%. And I mean, let's not discount the fact that it's like it's fun to be jacked and strong. It just is, and that's okay as long as you temper it well. Now, and a good question for you know everybody to hear from the both of us: how do we quote unquote invite God into the process so it doesn't inflame vanity?
Be mindful of why you're doing it, and also be grateful too, because sickness can strike anytime. So can death. You probably had a few close calls. I nearly had a shot put thrown by a kid in a P lesson, hit me in the temple, right? It was like inches away. And I got up and everyone was shocked, like eyes wide. What's going on? And I thought, what? And they said, sir, that nearly got you in the head. And I think, wow, that would have been it for me. And it just makes you think, right? It's a gift. Every day is a gift. And this might sound cringe, but sometimes if I've been busy working at a keyboard or computer and you go in there and you just get to feel the iron and you can see the chalk dust just floating in a ray of sunshine or whatever, it's just great. It's really beautiful. So you can just thank God for little silly things like that that might not make sense to some people, but if you're into that, then there's beauty in it.
It's super well said. I think it's also, I mean, anywhere can be your altar, right? If you have a home gym like we do, like I've got a picture of Saint Hyacinth, the patron saint of weightlifting, and a crucifix, multiple crucifixes and sacramentals around my gym. So I'm constantly aware of God's presence in my gym. And even it's just a little sign of the cross before a big lift, having my chain purposely dangle when I'm doing a deadlift, always reminding me of the ultimate sacrifice, and that what I'm doing in the gym in a very like insignificant way is realigning myself with the suffering of Christ on the cross. Is that example of like the straining toward the goal that St. Paul talks about in Philippians, and just doing even a little prayer, like asking St. Hyacinth to intercede, for the Lord to protect me from injury. And it's also like the music that you listen to. Like, don't listen to degenerate music. I listen to exclusively Christian, Catholic music. So whether it's Gregorian chant or my favorite Catholic rapper, shout out Enoch, that's all that I'm listening to in the gym. Or it could just be, I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm almost a boomer in spirit, where I'm listening to like Catholic podcasts while I'm lifting. Not in my main sets, but like in between. That's what I like to do. It feeds my soul while I'm moving my body through space. So it doesn't have to be something super complicated. You don't have to get kumbaya about it. Just invite God in the process, bring a cross with you, remind yourself of why you're doing it. And I think that could be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. Gregorian chant is really peaceful and focusing to lift to. I think more people should do that. Sometimes I'll often read the Psalms in between sets as well, because there's a lot in the Psalms about life as a unceasing battle, basically, and being surrounded by enemies and having to discipline yourself, stay focused. So it's a good way just to keep that in mind, because part of what training is doing is strengthening you mentally and physical for the long haul, right? Your whole life long, you want to see this as something you're going to be engaged in. It's not some 8 to 12 week bikini body blitz like a woman's magazine might show, giving you a quick fix. It's something you want to do for life. So when I see guys saying like they're going to work out for Lent, I'm thinking, at least you're doing something. But really, it should be, I'm just going to do this for life, not for Lent, just for life. You might have a particular tweak on it, like I'm going to read through the Psalms, um, all of them, once a week in the gym through the whole of Lent, right? But the base level, like the rule for yourself, should be the I lift twice a week for the rest of my life, something like that. That's what I recommend anyway.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And learning to cultivate that discipline in the gym really makes you a better Catholic in so many ways. And in one way, for me, it's like I don't, and this might come across as because I'm wearing a Pray the Rosary hat right now. Shout out to my boy Rob Renzi, but I don't ever feel like praying the Rosary ever, ever. I don't desire to pray the Rosary, but do I do it every day with my family without fail? That's not something I look forward to, but I don't necessarily look forward to all my training sessions. Some of them actually scare the crap out of
Mhm.
me, but I still show up and do it anyways. I do my morning offering, I do my morning prayer. I don't want to do a lot of these things, but I know what's good for me. And in fact, I mean, I think I heard Father Ripperger or someone similar say that when prayers are particularly dry and you still show up, that they're more meritorious,
Yeah.
because you're not actually getting anything from God. There's no consolation. They're dry. You kind of don't really feel His presence, but the virtue of justice needs to be fulfilled in your time spent with God, giving God what He's rightly owed.
Yep, exactly. And there's a parallel in the gym in that oftentimes it's the workouts that don't feel good but get stacked up often enough that will then lead to a really good one. Have you noticed that?
Oh, dude, so many times I'm coming in on low sleep, maybe low food. Like I feel like crap. And once I actually get in the gym and I start to warm up, the body's actually really strong. It's really explosive. And those have been, to that point, some of my greatest workouts ever. You know, I mean, and again, like I think this is also a good segue to start talking about like what guys could use to sort of maybe enhance their workouts. But I think a lot of guys overthink that. Dude, you've got 7 kids. I've got two with a third on the way. We're now teaching them to my daughters to sleep in the same bedroom. We've got a little one on the way. It's chaotic around here. Like, am I going to use that? Like, oh, I only got 3 or 4 hours of sleep, one meal in, and as an excuse not to show up and do it. Like, there's a grit that you develop through doing that as well. And I'm sure, like, this better than I do, having 7 kids. Like, you don't even think about that, do you? You just show up because you need to do it.
Yeah, if you're always waiting for the perfect conditions, they're never going to arrive. And even if they did, you would be in them and you're imperfect. So you're going to ruin them. So you may as well just take what you've got and work with it and trust that hard work is rarely wasted. I would actually say never wasted in the spiritual life. Like, do your prayers even when you feel awful. Sometimes, if you push too hard in the gym, you might make a waste of hard work. But in general, most people can't train that hard, right? Their minds just haven't got it to do it to their bodies. So, as a rule, hard work in the gym isn't going to be wasted either. And this is why Pius XII talked about it being a softness, an antidote to softness and easy living, an antidote to softness and easy living. And that's a phrase that I think guys should really pay attention to. If you feel that softness in you, that craving for easy living, just think, do I want that in myself? How's that going to affect business, marriage, prayer life, all of it? And see the gym as an antidote to that. It's a way you can attack it in a really quantifiable, physical way that's like a doorway to attacking it everywhere in your life. When we're taught in scripture that the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence and the violent bear it away, that really goes to the core of what Christianity is about. Are you willing to do violence to yourself, to the part of yourself that's going to prevent you from making spiritual progress? You better be, or you're not going to make it, because God's not going to steal that struggle from you. He'll help you through the struggle, but He won't take it from you. Because if He took it from you, then that would actually emasculate you. It would be bad for you spiritually.
Oh, that's so well said. There is a significant correlation between being able to bear tremendous physical suffering and being able to bear tremendous spiritual suffering, or when life becomes turbulent. I know that if it wasn't for the grit that I built up in some of these incredibly hard workouts and sets that I've put together over the years, um, I'd probably buckle under a lot of the pressure that I've been under as a provider, as a family man, or even before that when I was, running my gym business, or now running the businesses that I do now. If it wasn't for that degree of that intimate relationship I have with physical suffering, I wouldn't be able to bear the other kinds of sufferings that well either. And so, and a lot of guys are like, well, the saints weren't jacked, because I talk about the barbell being a tool of sanctification. Yet the saints didn't need the gym, because a lot of them were being martyred, or they were being chased down for their faith. They were living in fundamentally hard times. Like, you have to take the times into context. Like, we live in a soft time, dude. You've got Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes. You've got all this indulgent food at the click of a button. Your dopamine is being fried by Zyn pouches and alcohol and your phone and being on social media. It's like we actually have to recreate this work. As silly as it is, we have to recreate the work. My grandfather, if you look at his hands, they're like leather mitts, because he worked in a tannery and he worked brutal conditions. So when he, like, he thinks about me in the gym, he kind of just like laughs. I'm like, yeah, you didn't have to do that. I'm sitting here and I like pontificate about masculinity for a living. I've got to recreate some kind of work in sweatpants. So like, if I don't have this hardness that I embrace, I'm going to become soft real, real quick.
Let's see the hands, Mike. Let's see the hands.
Yeah. Baby hands other than my calluses.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. So, because of the extra temptation towards softness by design that modern society surrounds men with, like sirens, right? Calling us in, trying to make us just become like the lotus eaters in the Odyssey, where you get trapped by the like, it's like an opiate almost of comfort and luxury, and it stops you developing as a man. You have to make an extra effort to be vigilant against that. Just like Jesus says, stay awake. You have to be awake to what's going on around you and use all the tactics you can to fight back. And yet, it's true, you can get to heaven without lifting. But what if you can grow some virtue through lifting that is actually an aid to your spiritual journey, as well as being worthwhile physically in itself, right? We're not saying that the only reason to do the gym is because there's some kind of spiritual carryover. Actually, there's a point to say that that outlook actually has something in common with this anti-competitive spirit that you see in the public school system, where they don't really care about seeing the body in action, all right, and the athlete actually resting in the expression of himself bodily, right? A football play or a shot put or a wrestling match in itself is good. They always talk about the character development angle. We want to get both. Yes, we want the character development, but yes, we just appreciate the beauty of the act itself when the body is being allowed to express itself as it ought to be. So it is better to see something like a dunk from Michael Jordan than a guy just slouching on the couch, right? There's beauty in their action in itself, quite apart from the mental discipline involved in the skill development. So it's a really subtle point. Do you think that's often missed, Mike?
I think that's a very much missed. And I think also what's also missed too is that sport in general, because Pius had talked about it being kind of just sport, but whether it's lifting or competitive athletics, what have you, it makes you a humble victor and a humble loser.
Mm.
So there's actually something really great and humbling about the fact that some of these workouts are getting injured or something happening to you in competition or losing that is good for your spirit. It is fundamentally good for you to be reduced so Christ can increase. Just a quick segue. I just want to tell a quick story that I outlined on my YouTube. Um, I recently got very lean, like sub 10% body fat, like very, very, very lean. Went to Mexico with my family for 9 days. That was kind of like the target. I'm like, I'm gonna get shredded for this, beach vacation, whatever. Just having a tangible goal. I get there. This has never happened to me my entire life. God knew I needed to be humbled because what happened was that this obsession over like my macros and the way that I looked started to really creep up. So when I got there, I wasn't being particularly indulgent. This food reacted with my body in such a way that everything disappeared. I was so inflamed and so water retentive that I had like pockets of fluid hanging off of my love handles. Like my abs were gone. It looks like I looked like I was fat. I'm not joking. I was freaking out. I didn't know mentally. I was like, what's going on? I come back within 2 days. I'm right back to where I was. No joke. And the way that I look at that was God humbled me in my pride, in my hubris. It still happens to guys like me and you, even after 15 years of doing this. Sometimes this stuff gets to your head, but when these humiliating moments hit, it is incredibly edifying. What I found myself doing was going to confession, praying that this never happens again, for him to subdue my appetite. And what did I learn through that? I learned that, you know what? It's actually better for me to be slightly fatter. This is not my identity. My identity is rooted in Christ. This is just an accessory to that straining towards sainthood. And it's the same thing in the gym. When I've injured myself or when my strength has been 20-30% less than it's been at peak strength, I've gotten finally to the point where that doesn't bother me at all.
Mm.
God has humiliated me in the gym in such a way where I understand my identity is not in that extra 2.5 pound or 45 pound plate at the end of the barbell. I just think that's worth mentioning because I think a lot of guys always just like to hit the vanity button. They press the vanity button. It's like, no, no, no. it's it's actually an effective antidote to that if you're paying attention.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll learn that sooner or later as long as you actually stick with it. It will teach you that almost as like a final gift that you've made all the progress you're going to make now. There'll be no more weight on the bar for you. Eventually, you're going to age and get weaker and weaker. And you have to deal with watching all that stuff that you were gifted with and then developed fade away. And there's nothing you can do to get it back. So I think that's inevitably a lesson that people are going to get from it. And that point about body fat and how it can change your mentality about it, that's a really deep point spiritually, because people will sometimes do things like fasting, for example, and deep down they're actually doing it because what they think it might do for their appearance or their physical health rather than the actual mortification of it. Like, it's Friday today, obviously. We're coming up for 3 p.m. here in the UK, and I haven't had any food at all today. Wednesdays and Fridays, I don't have any food until 3 p.m. Just as a little mortification, because I know from coming up for 15, 20 years of eating regularly, making progress in the gym, that annoys me, right? I don't like not eating until 3 p.m. I don't do it because I think it's healthier or is going to energize me somehow. I do it specifically because it annoys me. And I know it's suboptimal for actually muscle protein synthesis and all the rest of it. So my reason is that exactly mortifying the flesh. And to begin with, I was so used to eating frequently. I got kind of hangry about it, right? Just to start with, I thought that's pathetic. Seriously, for that reason alone, I'm going to keep doing this till I get rid of that reaction in myself. Now I've got rid of that, but just intellectually, it still annoys me that I know it's not the optimal thing to be doing. But who cares? It doesn't actually matter. And the weirdest thing is, I noticed that sometimes I'd go in and train because I had to for my schedule that day with no food. And it actually was a much better workout than I was expecting. Sometimes even better than if
Mm.
I'd been fully fed. I think that's weird, isn't it? You wouldn't have imagined that. But turns out that you just stick with the stuff that's right on principle and accept what the results are going to be. And what more can you ask for? Because you're doing what's right in principle.
And God gives you the graces for those workouts too, right? It's like I see I see your effort. He doesn't have to give us anything, but I think those are little as I think Father Ripperger and my friend Anthony says, those are little grace cookies. And I during
Hmm.
Lent I did an extensive amount of fasting, you know, a ton of fasting. And I specifically said to myself, if I like just stop making progress in the gym, like good, whatever. That's part of it. And you know what? I did lose progress in the gym, but coming out of Lent, it actually detached me even further from my identity as the strong guy. So when I come in and I can do a workout and I'm actually starting to progress again, even after being 20, 25% down in strength, that's good. Like what would it would actually be a deeply grave for my spirit if I could just go and hit 815 right now. It wouldn't be good for me. I'd
Mm.
buy in too much into my own hype. So highlighting what you just said, doing it because of the annoyance, because of the mortification is so important. You could be doing a 30-day fast. And if you're thinking about what you're going to be eating to break the fast at the end of the 30 days, you just lost all of the spiritual benefit of that fast if that is what you're hyperfixated on. Because the whole point is to subdue this inordinate desire within you.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're just hyperfixating on it. You just happen to just know how to white knuckle your way through some hunger.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
you say that's right?
Yeah, it's like the devil's going to be like, think about how awesome your abs are going to look at the end of this 30-day water fast, and you can post on Instagram about them. It's like that's not the reason for fasting. Um, all right, this is awesome. I wanted to add one last thing, which is that if you're a busy guy with a larger family and a demanding job, you might find it helpful to do short, frequent workouts. So sometimes I'll just train 6 to 7 days a week for like 20 to 30 minutes. Just go in, do one lift for maybe 3 sets, get out. And the reason I like that approach is it at least keeps me consistent rather than me making excuses saying I just can't do it at the moment. Even if I am very busy, and you've seen my schedule on some days, it's almost no time. You just go in there and do one little thing, and then that just keeps momentum going, because so many guys I see will have a good week or a good month, and then something hits and then they fall off, and it takes them a long time to get back on again. So just having a rule where you go in and do something, at least even if it's 10 minutes, right, on a bad day, I find that really psychologically helpful.
And it's a question of sustainability and being able to be adherent to it over time. So you've got to make it fit your life, not the other way around. You can't train like a professional power lifter or bodybuilder. Make it flex to your needs as a, family man, provider, etc. And I would urge all guys that have the space to do it, make it convenient. And if you have the financial means and space, get yourself some equipment for home. It'll make it that much easier to do. And to answer a quick question in the chat here, do we prefer dumbbells or kettlebells? Barbells and dumbbells are by far superior because of the progressive overload element and the stability element. Kettlebells are not going to produce the same kind of strength adaptation or physique adaptations that a barbell or a dumbbell could produce, given, of course, the stability, the versatility in terms of movements, and the ability to progressively overload them over time. I just wanted to get to that question.
Yeah,
But that's a
for
great
sure.
one to end off on.
The financial benefit of a home gym isn't just the saved gym membership fees, it's also the travel cost to and fro. It's the fact that your wife and kids can use it, and it also cuts down on the time too. So it lowers the friction. So you can actually get the gym done more consistently. And it can be like a nice family activity. So I've got some old paper logbooks from must be nearly 15 years ago with little drawings from my kids in of like power racks with monster type creatures in growling lifting weights from when they were like 3. I'm thinking that's fun, right? And we can look back at little doodles, and they've always been around just having fun, messing around. We had a trampoline outside one of the home gyms that we had, and it's just a way of showing them through your actions that this is what healthy living is about. And you don't get that if you just go to a commercial gym and leave your family at home. So I'd really recommend it for that reason too. But the financial benefit is there, and you've got to watch money if you're trying to raise a large family, because it can get expensive. So saving where you can is important.
Yeah, and 100%. Also, let's not discount the fact that there's no occasion for sin at home. There's not going to be women unless it's your wife and you told her to wear some, skimpy clothing around the gym, which your kids shouldn't be in view of. But you're not going to have occasions of sin inside your home gym as well. So you're guarding your eyes, you're protecting and preserving your chastity, let's say, as well. And plus, it's really cool having your kids witness their father doing some really cool stuff in the gym. So all these things in combination, plus like the time element with your kids, it's no question. So if you guys do have the space and the time, I definitely do it.
Yeah.
Will, we need to do an episode like this again, man. We could talk about this for hours.
Yeah. At that point about the skimpy outfits, that's deep. And it's deep for two reasons. Of course, it's spiritually dangerous in a commercial gym when it's women who aren't your wife, but actually, when it's your wife, that's not only not sinful, it's actually virtuous, right? You can let her dress like that with the two of you around. And it can also be just an opportunity for connection and flirting, because she's going to want to feel like she can wear some of that stuff sometimes when it's appropriate. And it is with you. So I've seen that really help a lot of couples actually. So the two of them working together. And when the woman starts to feel better about her body from the exercise she's doing, guess what that translates to? Better connection in the bedroom often, because she's got better self esteem. Apart from tiredness, right? Just stress and fatigue, one of the main reasons for women's low libido is actually uh, poor body image, and encouraging her to take an interest in health and fitness. That's part of being the protector and the provider that so many guys neglect.
That's so well said. Their own perception of their attractiveness and how sexy they feel is everything. Like
Mm.
their libido is like a thermostat dial. Ours is like a light switch. And big part of having that dial turned all the way up to 10 is how you're helping them take care of themselves and how you interact with them far before any bedroom antics begin. So guys, just as a quick note for the married men out there, take those two tidbits and put it in your back pocket because it's incredibly, incredibly important. And we could do a whole episode on that. We should in the future too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, today's been great. Thanks everyone who's turned up in the live stream. Oh, one more question. Is pre-workout cheating? No, personally, I don't use it. I just like to be in tune with what my actual mental state is rather than mask it with stimulants like that. But it's not cheating. If you find it beneficial and it's one that's safe for you to use, then fine, go for it if you like that. I would just rather know exactly what my energy levels are so I can actually get a better workout that's dialed into how I feel that day.
I am not surprised. You're like a monk in the gym. I'm the total opposite. I love pre-workout. I have like 3, 4 tubs in my in my cupboard. I'm deep down, I'm a bro to the core. So I absolutely use pre-workout. I absolutely use creatine. Everybody should be doing creatine 10, 15, 20 grams a day because there's so many benefits outside of just, muscular endurance and hypertrophy and stuff. But yeah, no, pre-workout's not cheating. Like I feel like at this point, I feel like I need it with how tired I am some days. I don't need it. I'm just being soft. So maybe I should get rid of that for a while. But pre-workout is definitely something I'd recommend. Just a cup of coffee though. Like I did that for a long time. Like don't make it complicated. You don't need beta alanine and citrulline malate and agmatine sulfate. You don't need all this dumb stuff. You just need a little bit of caffeine. Take a caffeine pill, be done with it.
Yeah.
Creatine monohydrate, a little bit of whey protein powder, and then lately I've been experimenting again with some essential amino acids and electrolytes. But that's literally all it is. It's just hydration. So
Mm.
yeah, supplements not needed. Everybody should take creatine, but nobody even. I don't really use whey protein. I eat my protein. I much prefer to do that. You don't need supplements. Just get to lifting and stay hydrated, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much what you need to do.
That's it. And do it consistently for years. And then you'll get to where you want to be. And on the creatine point, if your wife isn't currently taking creatine, get her to take it. Have a look at some of the research on women's anxiety, depression, mood regulation, and fatigue levels with creatine versus not. Not a lot of people know this, but it's one of the most useful supplements for women to take, regardless of whether they train or not. So, what Mike just said about creatine, it doesn't just apply to men, it applies to women too. All right, Mike, awesome to talk to you as always. And yeah, we should continue this at some other point, perhaps discussing how to encourage wives to take more of an interest in the gym.
I think that would be awesome. Let's do that as a continuation in a couple of weeks after our man Tim gets back.
All right. Yeah, looking forward to that. Take care. God
God bless,
bless.
brother. You too.